This is going to be a typing using Socionics Model A. At the end, I may include a DCNH subtype or may not. I'm going to be asking you a series of questions, and I would like for you to treat them um, as if they were open-ended. Don't feel the need to feed me any information. Just kind of respond naturally with like things that have happened in your life. Don't bring up your typology or anything of that nature. But I think, yeah, you sat in yesterday, so you know. And then, of course, this is not me telling you precisely what you are. This is me giving you a data sample for you to use to understand yourself. Do you have any questions before we get started?
None.
Okay. All right. So the first question: tell me about yourself. What do you do? What do you want to be doing? What? Um, Walk me through what a day in the life is like for you.
What I do now is I run a manufacturing and recycling company with my cousin. So it's an extension to a bigger business I'm trying to build over time. I study a specialized field of business. I study entertainment business, planning to integrate that in some extent with what I do in the next 5 to 10 years, which is to bring accessible music distribution and royalty collection to my country, which is not as prevalent so far, with
Hmm.
the internet being a new thing, so to say. And I'm a student and I like to work out. I like to go to the gym. I'm a martial artist. I train Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. What I want to be doing is, I suppose, just changing the world in one way, shape, or form, one day at a time. Because if you do it enough every single day, you would have done it in a sense, or inspired somebody else to do it in a sense where it's made a difference.
Okay. Very interesting repertoire there. May I ask you what piques your interest in martial arts?
Sure. So it's something I got into due to anger management counseling in high school. It was a way for me to justify getting out of trouble, as to justify the fact that yeah, I will be working on myself. I'll take very tangible steps that you can see, track, and watch me do, Miss Counselor, which show that I'm willing to work on myself. So I don't have a issue going forward in a sense. And from that moment onwards, it became a source of discipline. It became a source of competitiveness and fostering that excessive energy that I always felt the need to expel, to be taken out in a pretty consistent, systematic, respectable way, which benefits me in the long run. Whether it fortifies my brain, fortifies my personality, my confidence, my ability to stand tall in face of calamity, protect people I care for, or whether it just makes me physically healthier. That's just something which happened to, fall into that standard category. That's why I chose to do it. Plus, I just like fighting. There's something about it. I've done it since I was a kid, and there's something about the idea of going out there. Because at the end of the day, it is a art form. It's martial arts. It's the expression of self and the enforcement of your will by virtue of something very real. At the end of the day, happiness, joy, all this stuff can be fake, but the pain and the lessons you learn at the end of a fight, those can't really be fake. They'll always be there.
Hmm. Absolutely. Fostering that competitive spirit, I think, can take you places in life for sure. Very interesting. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next question. What are the biggest lessons that you've learned in life?
So I can rarely think of things that I've learned in life as lessons and more so just pieces of the puzzle to integrate as addition to what I kind of already know. I rarely stumble upon something and go, oh crap, I never knew this. This is something I should do. And it's more so like yeah, it makes so much sense. I've kind of always known that this is the right thing, and now that I've heard it, it's like, okay, this is the thing to do. There's been a lot of those moments, but it takes me some form of almost external proof to be compliant with that concept. Let's say at the age of maybe 10, 12, you come across the basic philosophy and understanding of what Stoicism preaches. But I, as a human being, would never integrate it into my life till I read, understood, saw the benefits of, as gratified by the masses, what you would consider Stoicism. Now I see it as, okay, this is something worth exploring and doing. So I suppose when it comes to the biggest lessons I can learn with that general layout of a philosophy side, I think the concept and idea of always being open to adapt, but always questioning the shit out of whatever is making you need to adapt, as to never being pushed in a certain way in life without having figured out why I might be being pushed. So that way you can always be critical. That way you can always be sure about where you're going, why you're going there. You know, knowing the purpose of what do I do? Why do I do this? Is this something I need to do? What does this mean for me and my life and the people around me? What I want to be as a human being? Sort of always poking the bear while trying to make your way through the woods. So at the end of the day, you do get out of the woods, because that's the goal in this analogy, I suppose. But you do it while making sure you take account of every possible high note that you could. Leave no bases uncovered, essentially.
Okay. Give me just a second.
I would add to that actually, because it kind of bleeds into resilience. It kind of bleeds into that internal purpose-based force of volition, so to say, your will, as if I believe in this and I think this needs to be done. And the best way to do it is by figuring out every way in which it can be done the best. For me, for the people that it's going to affect, for what I want to do in life. If tomorrow I want a chocolate bar, I'll never just go and get a chocolate bar without thinking and for no reason. I'll consider it. What does this mean for my diet? What does this mean about my psyche in terms of, I don't know, being addicted to sugar, something like that. And once I've answered all those questions, I'll decide if I want a chocolate bar or not, if that's important, if that's something worth exploring. And then I'll choose to get the chocolate bar.
Hmm. All right. We're going to move on to the next question. So you're elected the dictator of your home country for 6 months to solve its problems. What do you do?
Institutionalize. Well, I, as the dictator, the fact that I got there means narratively something must have had to fucking go down, because if I've been elected, there's very little chance that I ran and won a popularity contest and there was some major force at play, because I'm just a dude, at least from where we stand now, realistically. The fact that I've done that means that people trust and believe in my judgment, so I won't be a dictator that needs to be too afraid or paranoid about getting Julius Caesar, if you know what I mean. But by institutionalizing, what I'll do is take the most experienced, important people before me, sit in the meeting with them, maybe once every day, once every few days, check in what needs to be worked on, make a list of it, find the best people to work on it, and put them to task in the best way possible. So, how the Manhattan Project went down was they had an idea to make a big bomb, because the goal is to win the war. And to do that, we need a big bomb. We need to bomb the Nazis before they bomb us, or we need to bomb the Japanese before they bomb anybody else. And what they did to accomplish that was they found Oppenheimer. In this situation, I suppose I will be Oppenheimer and I'll make my team of super scientists, bring them to my little commune, and put them all to work at what they're best at so we can build the bomb. to solve the problem which the dictatorship might present.
Okay. There's a fixation on what others have to bring to bear in the situation.
Yeah, because I don't know shit compared to people who've actually been in situations where they need to run a country. What I do know is that people know how to run countries, so just find the right people.
Okay. that certainly doesn't bode a specific direction. All right.
I'm trying not to make anything go a certain direction based on what I already know and have thought about myself,
Yeah.
but that's genuinely what I think is the
Yeah.
most realistic and practical thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm being vague, but it's just really funny. Like there's a juxtaposition between that and something that's kind of in the same area that I also see, but
Yeah.
it's just a very different answer.
I'm just like a 20-year-old with a liberal arts bachelor in arts degree. What the fuck am I gonna do?
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. Know your limits. Um, we're gonna move on now. Do you find it easy to relax?
I guess I'm always relaxed. I never need to go out of my way to find a sense of like, oh yeah, now is the time when I need to relax, when I need to do this, do that. Because if you're always pushing yourself to do what you want to do and you really love what you're doing, you'll never be stressed or tensed out by it. You'll never think, oh shit, I wish I was doing thing XYZ instead. But the way I approach life is I wake up every day. I know what I want to do. I know why it matters to me and I do it. And then I'll never be tired of it, you know? So in that sense, I could work for 50 hours a day and not need to relax. And I could work for 2 hours a day and still feel relaxed because that stress will never hit you if there's other shit not to worry about.
Okay.
It's like life is your job, you know. You as a human being have been placed here to do something. Before God gave Adam Eve, he gave him a job. He gave him the job to name things, to figure out the situation and how taxidermy would play out in the Garden of Eden. I approach it a little bit like that. We're all Adams in our own stories. So we come fulfill our roles, do our little deeds, and do them as best we can. And if you do what we're supposed to do, then you won't be bothered by it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Carpe diem,
Yeah.
in a way of speaking. Is your room clean?
My room is clean. Yeah.
Why and how? When you
It, go on.
well, that's basically it. Why do you clean your room and how do you clean your room?
So right now I'm home, right? I'm on summer vacation. I'm back from college. I'm always traveling a lot. I'll be studying in one country, studying abroad in one country, working in one country, living in this city, living in that city. What that means is that I often just kind of live out of a suitcase and I often don't have a lot of possessions, decorations, tinglings, and a lot of trinkets that I need to look after. So there's just very little to clean. That's kind of how it plays out, especially even in my dorm. I went to boarding school, and that meant that every semester we would change our room and roommates. A lot of people would bother putting a lot of work into setting up their room, so on and so forth. I figured I'm only going to come to my room to sleep, and I'm outside all day studying, playing sports, doing this, doing that. Who gives a shit? Because I'm going to change the room anyway. I'd rather just interact with people, do my job as a student, kind of become the best version of myself instead of trying to show something to somebody which nobody else will really see because I'm going to be the only person sleeping in this room. Who gives a shit? Nobody can see it. That's kind of how I live even now. My room is clean because all I need to do is wake up, drink my coffee, sit on my computer, go outside. There's no need to have shit that would make it dirty. I'll make my bed. I make my bed every morning first thing because it gives me an accomplished start to the day. It lets me wake up and see, okay, shit, task one done. Next, task two, task three, task four. It gets me out of bed really fast.
Okay. So you have a tendency to lack that relationship. All right. We're gonna move on. I don't think I need to go any further. Um, are you good at predicting the future?
I would say so, yeah. I'm good at pattern recognition, and that essentially falls into the same category as predicting the future. I don't have a magic 8 ball, but I did tell my dad to buy Bitcoin in 2013. So there's some level of, uh, at least when it comes to financials, when it comes to academia, when it comes to recognizing people's abilities and output, in what time frame they'll be able to get something done, not only just others, including myself as well. I would say I'm good at that. It allows me to delegate pretty well. It allows me to mobilize other people in terms of, okay, hey, what up, dude? I know you. I'm gonna build a team which is gonna be me, you, and this guy. Since we know that we're good at this stuff, and usually it takes us this long, but the thing that's changed about the syllabus this time is this part, it might take us this long. If we start exactly on this day, then we're gonna finish on this day, and we'll have day one to revise, day two to do this, and boom, now we're done with the project, we're done with the goal. Or throughout the pandemic, essentially, after making money in high school and having a lot of free time because high school itself turned online, I'll be able to sit on my desk and play with the stock market a lot. I got into that. I started paper trading, saw results immediately because not because I studied too much. I studied a basic macroeconomics 101 book, but because I was able to understand how the sociology of consumer culture works. So if tomorrow everybody's crying about oxygen tanks, and I know there's one company that makes oxygen tanks, even though their stock isn't listed here, I know one guy who owns another company that I can research who owns this factory that makes them. I'll just invest in that. And that way, at the end of the day, you've capitalized on the suffering of people, but you've also predicted the future.
Oh man. And isn't that a plague in itself?
It is, yeah. This life just needs to be lived very circumstantially. That's why I don't believe in having too strict of a rule set for life, because you never know what might hit you. And luckily, I would say my religious philosophy or the way I was raised kind of helps out with that. There's very little constraint on this is exactly how something has to be, otherwise it is not right. There's a lot of, okay, you know what? Today this shit is like this and it works. That's why we do it. 1,000 years ago, it worked differently. That's why they did that. What do we do tomorrow to make sure that it keeps working? So in 1,000 years from now, our people can still exist and
Okay.
thrive, more importantly. Kind of goes into why I chose recycling and renewable energy as a primary way to supplement my financial needs for now, for the next 5, 10 years, alongside my passion, which is music. Because in 2016, where I live, the country did not have nearly as many internet users. And with internet users comes the prospect of being able to stream things, being able to access music, being able to pay for things which you weren't able to before, such as Spotify memberships and artists making and getting paid. And that's why I want to build that platform which collects those royalties, which gives those artists that chance to, influence their life in a big way and actually get them paid, or with sustainable energy, recycling.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the governments that are ahead of my South Asian government, India, in terms of green energy, you see what they're doing is, well, it's lithium ion. You can't really get rid of all the waste in a landfill. You have to recycle it. So we're going to end up doing the same thing. legally at some point or the other, because that's just what the powers that be dictate. And if I'm able to see those things doing so, I would rather be the first person in India, even if I don't make money today, doing that recycling business, setting up that plant. So the one day when the law does pass, which it 100% will, because the concept of green energy isn't going anywhere anytime soon, then I'll be able to stand my ground and say, oh, hey, by the way, all of you car manufacturers, all of you people looking to get rid of your batteries and don't know where to send them to me. Pay me. I'll get rid of them for you. I'll make money off it, and you'll be happy because you made money off me. Simple.
Gotcha. That was quite the yeah, quite the response. I think we're gonna go.
Life is a gamble, you know? Life is a gamble. You got to predict the future as best you can, but you can't be too stressed about it because in poker, even if you're counting cards, the house is always going to win if it wants to. And the way the world works is as good as you are at poker, you may just never know. So be ready with all your answers and be ready to change your answers just in case. That's kind of the approach to prediction.
Okay.
So if you know the bigger game, you win. If you only know how to count cards, you lose.
Okay. How do you manage time?
Well, that's how I put it in one word. I think I'm able to get done a lot of shit in less amount of time compared to other people. And I've been able to do it since a pretty young age. And perhaps it's a point of pride for me because what it does for me is allows me to explore my varied interests. Life would be shit if I just did one thing and I had to do it all day and I had to sit in an office and run sheets or desks or whatever the fuck I have to do like a slave, and that'll be ass. For me to avoid doing that, I need to have that mobility. I need to have control over my situation in a sense. And I don't believe in being a specialist in that sense. I believe in being a generalist. And to do that, one of the aspects you might have to master is how to manage your time. I like to use schedules, calendars, to-do lists. I like to prioritize and structure. So there's a 3 month plan at the beginning of every semester. Since I'm a student, I'll sit down, I'll take all my syllabi, I'll talk to teachers and ex students about, oh, hey, what does this assignment look like? How long does it take? What happens here? What happens then? I'll put all that in a calendar. And I won't just put the fact that here is the due date on the calendar. I'll also put usually it takes 2 hours to study for this exam. On Tuesday, the 15th, I'll study this part. On Thursday, 17th, whatever the fuck the date was, I'll study that part. And that way, I won't need to study on the day of the exam. So I'll just go and give the exam and be fucking Gucci. Other than that, I sit every Friday, I check it out, I make sure I got it done. I track my progress with a journal, which I haven't been as consistent at because I have to sit down and do it every day, which it's a little bit boring, but it works, and I want to do what works really well.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So I guess that's something I try to integrate. That way I can track my progress. So right now I've been trying to lose weight because I got a little fluffy in the last 2 years of college because I gave up sports, physical fitness for I gave up sleep, I gave up eating right for helping build a business essentially and helping be the best fucking student or the best fucking possible version of me that I could, that everybody's able to see. You have to establish that in a sense to have influence and authority, especially in a field as broad as entertainment business, where it's really just cocaine and connections. Well, I'm not very interested in the cocaine part, but I can do good on the connections. So I kind of have to build that rapport. So in that sense, time's been organized to feed that bigger goal, which has included academics, which has included self-development, and which has included tracking progress in a long-term and a short-term way.
Okay. All right. We're gonna go ahead and move on here. How do you respond to the emotions of others?
Depends on who they are, depends on why they're being emotional. Let's say if it's my partner, I tell myself immediately, chill, be patient, know who your partner is. You know the game you're playing. Because you can't play the game of emotions with everybody else the same way you do with anybody else. So I evaluate it based on what my relationship is to that person. I'm not going to offer a shoulder to cry on to every single person in this world or a piece of advice. But to those who I want to, I want to do it patiently and I want to do it tailored to them. I want to do it in a way where it benefits them. If it benefits them, it benefits me because our relationship is sustained. And the fact that our relationship exists to begin with, it means that, you know, there's something going on for both of us. So that's good. But if I see some random person crying in the street for God knows what reason, being a little bitch, or maybe they have a good reason, I'll kind of just walk past or I'll think about it. I'll come up with like 10 different stories in my head as to why that could have happened. And as bad as this might sound, I'll try to evaluate them based on how they look and act, who they were hanging out with, what they're dressed like, maybe what part of city they're in, so on and so forth, as to kind of come to a conclusion of, is this something I should approach or not? Because not every homeless person is worth giving money to. If I see a single mother who I see consistently in the neighborhood trying to work her ass off, being emotional in the street, I'm a lot more likely to help her than the guy who I know in relation to me harasses students locally and spends his money on alcohol. So that's how I would evaluate the emotions and the outbursts of people around me, so to say.
Okay. Do you ever use emotions to get a specific goal?
Yeah, don't we all? I mean, there's really not much to it. People respond in two main motivation factors. They either want something to happen or they don't want something to happen. If you can recognize what they want to happen and what they don't want to happen, you can elicit specific behavior within yourself to lead to what you want in that sense. If somebody's afraid of going broke, what can I do for them emotionally? Well, maybe I could offer them support. Maybe I could offer them resources in a sense where it gives them motivation instead of just flat faced robotic advice. It would have to be case by case, I suppose. But it is something I it's something I've wanted to do and tried to do, but it's not something I can get myself to always do because I'm so focused on doing something which I've already decided. So if something spontaneously comes up to me and says, "Oh hey, now use your ability to harness and understand emotions to tackle this person's issue," I'm more likely to just kind of neutralize the situation and hand it over to somebody who can handle it better. Like mutual friend who's way better at this shit and way more interested in doing this shit than me. Or like a therapist. Give them contact to somebody who can actually help them instead of sit there, listen to them, hear them out, so on and so forth.
Okay. There is a sink in your house that is broken. What do you do?
Call the guy who knows how to fix the sink.
That's it?
I could try to fix it myself, but I'm not a sink expert. I might fuck it up more, which I don't want because it's going to cost me more money and more time. It's gonna get my clothes wet. None of this shit which I want. Not a plumber. I'll call the plumber.
Okay. We can move on. How do you take criticism?
Happily. I like criticism. Criticism is at the crux of growth, and I like growth. Without growth, there's no purpose in being because nobody really knows why the fuck we're here. And growth is something you can't help but get. We're gonna be born, we're gonna grow up, we're gonna go into life, whether we like it or not. Unless we self-delete, which again also I suppose is a way to just finalize your growth. We're all gonna grow old and die. In this whole scenario, in this whole system of growth, where can you take control, and integrate your purpose? So in that sense, for me to accomplish my purpose, my growth, criticism is extremely important. And without criticism, I'm just gonna be a jackass. Nobody likes a jackass. Nobody respects a jackass. A jackass doesn't really get to influence people in a sense which brings positive change, or in a sense which brings tangible progress in the world, which is something I seek to do. So if I could close my ears and do whatever the fuck I want to do in life, but I won't get very far. I'll have to make the pit stops. I'll have to listen to the team when I drive my F1 car, telling me what the track looks like, who is in front of me, what I should do to get the fastest cut so I can win the race.
Okay.
It's like calling a timeout in a basketball game. Holy shit, Michael Jordan could fucking put the ball in the basket. But he knew to pass to Steve Kerr during, I think it was a finals game, because the coach told him so, because they knew it was the right plan to do. And what they wanted was a championship, and they got a championship. If they kept chasing, assuming I'm Michael Jordan in this situation, if I kept chasing that extra 2 points, I wouldn't have won the championship. And what's anything worth if I don't accomplish the final thing, even if I just did it out of, oh, hey, look at me. I'm the best. Am I really the best if I wasn't in the big picture the best? If I was just having a best day? I'd rather have 10 bad days where I'm the second best, and then on the 11th day, be the single best when it matters most, instead of having 10 great days where I'm number one and then be second on the last most important day.
Very strong growth mindset. Okay. Surprisingly, we've reached the middle. Actually, a little bit after the middle, but we're going to keep going here.
Concise.
Are you open to new ideas?
Yeah, I love new ideas. Without new ideas, we become a circle jerking society which gets nowhere. I'm so glad one day one of my ancestors decided to pick up a rock and put it on a stick, even though everybody thought he was crazy for doing so. Because with that stick, that dude, he killed a mammoth. With mammoth, we got bones, we got the ability to make tents, we got so much food, we got the ability to feed our tribe, do more and more and more. And that's why we got to keep exploring new ideas. That's why I'm excited by things like artificial intelligence and the future of commercial space exploration. Because it's better to fail trying to reach the light than live in the dark getting nowhere.
Okay. So what would you gauge makes an idea good?
Something which makes an idea good. I suppose we'll have to define what an idea is to begin with, right? Because there has to be a standard of what an idea is. I
Yeah.
guess an idea is like a thought which proposes a course of action maybe, or proposes something to get done, like an aim, a goal.
Yes.
Each idea must have something for that to accomplish. An idea would be made good then if it is appropriate in that sense. An idea is good if it gets that thing done, if it's doable, if it's practical. I don't want to fucking go to space just because going to space seems cool, because I have shit to do on Earth which could use that money, which could do this and that. But if the assumed return on investment of going to space is that we get to scientifically progress as a society and ensure our future as a civilization, then fuck yeah, let's go to space. But if going to space just meant we're just gonna go in there vibe because it was a fun idea, I don't even think that's an idea at that point. It's just like it's just thought. And a thought without a purpose, might as well keep it to yourself.
Okay. Do you like to travel?
I like traveling, yeah. I have filled out a significant chunk of the passport that I got 2 years ago, and I've ran through two passports throughout my life before this. Because if one has the opportunity to travel, whether it's for work, whether it's for vocation or a competition or exploration to find something meaningful there, they should take it. If you are a crab living in a bucket with a million buckets next to you with different types of crabs, you will never get to learn about what kind of bucket is the best to be in, what kind of bucket is the best to bring your own crab friends to so you can make the ultimate crab civilization for your people. And as a student, I got the opportunity to travel a lot for maybe athletic competitions, maybe for debate competitions, maybe for something or the other of this sort. And I took every chance I got for it. I meet people that I've never met before from perspectives that I've never met before, which, to be fair, online, that's why I like being on Discord in some sense, because there is no way I would be in a chat room with one Polish person and one person on the East Coast talking about whatever the hell I'm talking about if I was just sitting in my city, in my country. It would just be way more inefficient to do so, to find the opportunity to do that. And that's why you should travel. I also grew up traveling and moving a lot, moving cities, moving countries as a kid because of the nature of the work that my parents had. And I went to boarding school, international boarding school. So there were people from a lot of different backgrounds and cultures, which I thought brought its own significant value in my life. It kind of honed me into being more of a conscious and aware citizen of the world, where I have more data on how to see how the world works. If you've never seen the world and you're just guessing how the world works, you won't see much of it. You won't understand much of it. Even today, we have flat earthers. And just imagine how bad that would have been in a time when everybody thought the earth was flat and nobody decided to explore and go out in the sea to the edge of the ocean and find out that, oh crap, there's no edge. It's just big round world. Everywhere you go, there's something to have. If you have an idea, you can go give it to them, help them. That's fire. They'll love you for it too. If you have an opportunity to make something there which brings benefit to you and your people, good, do that. Bring your people there. You know, it's like, I think if I was in one of the earlier centuries, if I was a few hundred years back, I would be the kind of person who takes it upon himself to gather a group of people and go find shit which you can do cool shit with. And for that, you need to travel. For that, you need to explore. No point sitting in my village when I could go on the Silk Road, meet people from Russia and China and India and Persia find all the cool things they have and combine those things to make the ultimate cool thing and then give it to everybody else. So now we're all a little bit cooler at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on. Um, would you consider yourself to be a cautious person?
It's a mixed bag. I think I have a high risk appetite. I like to throw myself in the fire for the sake of it. Sometimes, just because what's the worst that could happen, you know? But I also understand that a lot of people rely on me, are going to continue relying on me. And without me, their lives are influenced for the worse. So I can't just make rash decisions. I can't just do anything and everything I want to do. In that sense, I'm cautious for that purpose, I suppose. But in general, if I can climb a wall that I've never climbed before, and this is like a real life example that I see in a park, I'll just do it because I want to see what's on the other side. When I was a kid, I did it and I found a stream with like a small settlement over there, and people would break down the pipes that were connecting the stream to the bigger water body, and they would sell it on the black market. And I thought, oh shit, that's the fucking coolest shit ever. It's illegal, but it's sick, you know, it's something I never knew before. And those kind of risks are worth taking when you find out something you didn't know before. And it might inspire you to come up with something later which can be beneficial for you or your people.
Okay. How do you handle conflict?
Immediately. That's how I handle conflict. If it's there and there's no obvious loss to be had, whether I do it diplomatically, whether I do it by brute force, it should be dealt with and should be dealt with swiftly, ideally with me coming on top. Because if it sits and simmers, it gives the other party not only time to think, react, consider other options, but it also takes away my opportunity to make the most of what I think I can do best, which is be quick on my feet and move forward. If you've immediately solved a problem and caused growth with somebody, psychologically, it has some sort of effect where they now trust you a little bit more than they did before. It's like through conflict and through problem solving, we grow as people. Our relationship deepens, our bond strengthens. You got to play that game a little bit. You got to be willing to solve a conflict in the moment so you can understand how other people respond to conflict. So in the long run, just in case a conflict does happen when you don't have the ability to act, you'll know exactly how they'll respond and what they might expect. So you can, I guess, one up them in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
I always think of this. If I was Julius Caesar or Napoleon, as cocky as this sounds, I might not have died the way they did. In some sense, I see their actions as ignoring of the potential threat which comes with not solving or diffusing conflict immediately and letting it simmer, letting other people have time to plot, not seeing that future possibility, if you know what I mean. And that harms them in the long run. So I guess think shit through and be ready to swing whenever you can, whenever you need to.
Gotcha. Okay. We're moving on to the last few questions here. How do you form your morals?
How do I form my morals? See, that's a fat question. How does one form the morals? I suppose by what's considered moral around me. Because in some societies, killing is the worst thing you can do. In other societies, it might be honorable. In some societies, it is the most moral thing to do to marry somebody at 15 years old, which I can agree with. But in other societies, that's not the way. But depending on where you are, how things work, what's advantageous, what's the right thing to do is then decided based on that, in a sense. I do read plenty philosophy, and I happen to be Hindu, which is essentially less so a religion and more so a philosophy, because there's very few strict rules, so to say. There's just more so suggestions, and it gives me the opportunity to make decisions on the go based on what's right. So I could imagine myself as somebody who, let's say, is in a society where murder is the worst thing to do. Not murder, I guess. Killing is the worst thing to do. And then I don't kill. But then somebody comes up to me, points a gun at my head, and says, I'm willing to do the worst thing in this society, which is kill you. And how do you respond? Well, I'm not going to die. I'm going to fucking kill them. At that point, I suppose I've abandoned my morals or the morals of the society, but I've survived to make better change anyhow and gotten rid of somebody who's willing to be amoral for the sake of it or out of some other reason, which isn't just to be alive. If you're willing to mug me, break the law, kill me, and I kill you in self-defense, even if it's the worst thing to do in that society, I think it's fine. Cool. I took out one horrible person with me. If I die, if I didn't, cool. One less bad person, one more me, and I can do good now.
Okay. So let's say, for example, no, maybe not that.
What are you afraid of? Hit me.
Well, basically, it was being redundant, I think is what I was like.
Oh, okay. Don't hit me.
Yeah. Because I had somebody tell me that I should probe more, and so I guess that I'm attempting to do it, but I'm also wanting to be as productive as possible with it. And so I guess this is a skill I need to build up.
I like that you think this way and you talk to other people about the skills you might need to build up. Even yesterday, I noticed you were exchanging notes with Siza, seeing how you could do better. That's good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about the system and not about me at all. I try to be the arbiter of it rather than because I'm never going to be the expert on it. Maybe through like a lifetime of work, but there are people who have dedicated so much of themselves to this field, and I think at best what I can do is thoroughly apply their information and then to be able to fact check other people's understandings of the system so it can be more replicable and more crystallized and better
Solid.
understood.
Good for you.
All right. Um, how do you process your own emotions?
Hmm. I organize them. If I'm feeling, thinking, and I can't seem to make sense out of it, my first goal is to make sense out of it. I'll write it down. I'll speak to somebody who I know does it way better than me, which can be a therapist, can be a partner who knows a lot about me, can be a mentor. And once I've been able to lexically translate it, once I've been able to put it into syntax, it'll almost work out like math. Because if something is inconsistent, which emotions can feel many times when they're still in your head, it'll start to funnel itself into something more meaningful, something more
Mhm.
of what I can play off of. So what I've started doing is going to therapy. My university offers it for free essentially, and I have insurance. So it's something which I have the privilege to have done. And counseling is something I explored in high school as well, because those people know way more than me about this shit. They help people going through way worse times than what I think I might be going through or have in the past. So having their having their lens on it is meaningful to process and understand them. If I have to do it very quickly, I don't think I do the best at it. That's when I think I start to resort to my default, which is fix, 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 fix. And you can't
Mhm.
immediately fix everything which causes you emotional hurt, which causes you internal turmoil, which you can't even understand. At least for me, I can't understand it. So it's good to reach out to a place like that.
Yeah. I think your openness is demonstrating a lot of sentience. That you're not too prideful to really work on the aspects of ourselves that are more nebulous and difficult to figure out. The cloudy, the muddy,
Yeah, I think
the.
you can't be, especially as a man in the 21st century. The amount of shit that goes around in the world, in society, on the internet, which is going to stray you away from doing what's productive, is insane to me. Influencers, whether it's people in like a specific male influencer niche, or in general, society is conducive to make men lonely. And I don't think that's the productive way to be, because that's what makes men miserable. If I'm
Mhm.
miserable, I'm not doing my best work. And I have to be the best me so everybody can benefit from it. So everybody can see, oh shit, that's the guy, that's him, you know? How am I going to be somebody who's insecure? How am I going to be somebody who hasn't made his own bed before telling everybody else to figure out their shit? How can I be a good leader? How can I be somebody worth listening to if I don't show that level of giving up my own ego or humility in that sense?
Mhm.
I'm sure it's not specific to the sex, the male or female, but at least within my peer group, the way I grew up, I saw this so much where I felt some kind of pressure, as though, shit, don't talk about this, don't cry about this, don't do that. Why? Because you just don't, and you're not supposed to. Even if you want to, who are you going to do it to? And once I started answering and solving those questions, I became a way better, way stronger, way more effective version of myself. And I got to provide that to others as well. I got to give that to my younger cousins. I got to give that to my kids in the future. I got to offer that to my partner. And if I can't do it myself, they'll never take me seriously. There'll be no level of persuasion. There'll be no practical benefit they see from me. So it'll be worthless. And I can't be that way.
Hmm. All right.
Don't give a man a fish, teach him how to fish. But fuck all am I going to do with learning how to fish from somebody who's never caught a fish in his life and is only going to read it off a book? You know, just kind of do it. Show me you've caught fish. So I got to show people I've caught fish so I can help them catch fish.
Okay. Are you consistent
Uh, with what?
in your behaviors, in your actions? Are you what you say you are? Do you stick to the same understandings? Um, do you detect
Hmm.
when things are inconsistent around you?
You know, maybe not. Maybe I'm not. Because when so much of your behavior and identity, which I think might be the case for me, is based around what you want to do, how you want to do it, and you have to do it at every cost, any cost, then you don't give yourself the time and space to reflect on, hey, I wanted to make $10 million today. I made $10 million, but I also wanted to make $10 million without stepping on any bunny rabbits. It's a question of what do you value more? Do you value getting the $10 million, or do you value getting the $10 million while not stepping on any bunny rabbits? I think sometimes I step on bunny rabbits because I'm so focused on getting the $10 million, and then I get told by somebody, "Oh shit, look, you killed so many rabbits." I'm like, "Oh, my bad, G." I feel bad about it. I didn't mean to do it. I feel bad about it, and I don't want to do it again, but it's happened. And I think everybody does it. If anybody says that they're completely consistent with their idea of who they are and they act exactly that way, scammer, charlatan, don't listen to them. They don't know shit. They're delusional. If they tell you that shit, no. At least that's what I think.
All right. That actually gave me a few pretty good examples for some of the answers that for other things. So that's interesting.
Yeah. I don't even know what kind of okay, no typology talk, but I'm not sure what you might be testing for in this question or what you might be testing here. But very interesting. Keep it up.
Okay.
Let's move on.
In socionics, it's basically textbook what that question is. We can talk about it at the end.
Yeah.
Um, Last question. What is truth?
Truth is a concept which exists beyond what we might just consider to be true. Truth is an external concept from facts, and facts are how we best understand what is true. For something to be true, it is accordant with reality and facts. So I always think of Plato's allegory of the cave or geocentrism back in the day. People used to think the earth is the center of the world and everything else revolves around the earth. To them, at that point, that was a fact. But it's not the truth because, as we best understand it today, the sun is actually the center of our solar system. While that, from our understanding, is a fact and true today, doesn't necessarily mean it'll always be, because we might find something else in the future that we don't know. We should be open to it, but as we stand today, that's what it is.
All right. That is fascinating. I think on that note, we're going to go ahead and call it. I have a type and a DCNH for you.
Very interesting. I've never gotten a DCNH, but I think my best guess, I think I know which one it is.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to just
Go
go
on.
ahead and blaze through the dichotomies and then go on to the blockings, which is where the meat of the information is going to be. Um,
Hell yeah.
so rational versus irrational. I think irrational. Um, Simply enough, because you seem to be making a lot of measured and weighted decisions of things. I see a lot of your answers are contingent on the processing of the information, and then you're making decisions. Um, and then I just see kind of like lots of decisions. I see like valuing of communication, which is pretty much usually a rational characteristic. Um, I see that you are also the it's not the observation of things where the pressure is on really for you. I see in a lot of situations where you can kind of see like both sides of everything, and so it's really like the processing of the information is where the weight is at. Um, so I definitely there's another reason why I think you're rational. It's because you're capable of saying, well, you can think about it this way far off into the future, but then also at other times you're like, oh, here it's grounded in the evidence, and it's like you have to show me it in order for me to know it's there in these things. And so I'm hearing a lot of different statements that are kind of being um, more so interchangeable. Um, but I guess also, there's another perspective that you could look at it, where it's like you could almost make an argument for irrational with some of your responses to ethical questions. So
Mhm.
maybe I should just throw that out. But yeah, I definitely think that you're a rational type. Um, and now we're going to go and move on to process versus result. I overwhelmingly think that you're result, mostly because you lack the articulate nature of the processes. When asking about the political question, you don't talk about your ideas. You talk about the effectiveness of the people around you and how you can um, orient those people in a way that is going to be more effective. And so that's the result, because the result's wanting to um, want to go from the solution and go backwards rather than to know about the situation in the
Mm.
first place. So you wanted to utilize other people. Huge
Yeah.
example of typically what I see as results rather than relying upon your own information. But that also correlates to some of the elements as well. Um, it's one of the reasons why I don't think that you're don't think that you're processing TI for sure. Um, but there's a few other things, like when you're talking about the killing of the rabbits. Huge example of result, right? Because you're not thinking about how you're going about it. You just want to get the thing done, and so you can sometimes destroy things
Mm.
on the process of getting things done. Where the process types are the perfectionists that do things down to the letter. The result types are the ones that skip around a little bit. And I think you slaughtering so many rabbits, great example of the result type. Um, just
Hey, $10 million is $10 million in a day. That's wild.
hey, you can
I'll get way more rabbits than I did for that.
yeah, you can start like a rabbit what is it, a rabbit reservation or something.
Dude, dude,
With that
dude.
money.
For me to make the $10 million, how do you think I did it? It cost me the rabbits.
The rabbits,
You have to step on them, man. Sell the rabbits.
but yeah, at some point you got to recoup the rabbits, or else there's just no more rabbits, man. And then what?
We can keep like two of them. We can keep like two of them
Well, they
and
do
make them
repopulate
produce.
like rabbits, don't they? I mean, that
Yeah,
is
rabbits
that
fuck
is
like
the
rabbits.
expression. Okay. All right.
Could you actually quickly define for me the difference between results and process again,
Yeah.
as concisely as you can?
So, result are the thorough people who want to have, who want to make sure that they have everything that they can understand about the situation down before they execute it. They tend to not really focus on the results, but the processes. And so, if the process is correct, they'll assume that the result's correct. That's, vice versa with the results,
Okay, yeah,
who are going to be like, oh, well, it doesn't matter what we did because we got to it. That's your
that
result.
makes sense.
The result type,
I'll say that's true.
yeah, the result type is the person that kind of jumps around a little bit and um, isn't going to be more perfectionist. One of the things that you said is not specialist but generalist. I know that's not verbatim, but usually the process is the specialist, and the result is the generalist. And so that there's another one of the correlations that I'm seeing, and I usually use that verbatim to when I'm describing process result. Are you a specialist or are
Yeah,
you a generalist? So the fact that you said that yourself, and then it fit in the
yeah.
categorization that I thought you were, I think that's telling. Um,
There's a really famous quote that always gets misattributed, misquoted. It's, "A jack of all trades is a master of none." That's usually where people stop it. Well, the original quote is, "A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one." And the world moves so fast. If you just are the master of one, prepare to be stepped on.
yeah. I mean, I guess in a way, there's so many different dynamic things. I mean, especially with me, with so many feet and so many different buckets. You know what I mean? Like I am the characteristic of that. I've got multiple hobbies that
Yeah.
I've made money at. I've got a career field. I've got a degree that's different from my career field. I'm all over the place, man. What am I? Um,
What do you type as high NE user?
what?
Like NETE. What do you type as NETE axis? That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, actually, I do type NETE, because I'm Delta. So
Okay.
that's yeah. The deltas um, focus on being excellent in as many domains as possible and refining those domains. Because the SI is all about the
Yeah.
refinement and such, and the gammas are more looking into the productivity of the ideas rather than the efficiency of the self. You know,
You just
because
gave me a hint on what you think my type is. I don't think you intended to.
um, yeah. Even yeah,
It's okay.
I think you can piece it
I saw
together
it
just
coming.
by listening to a few of these things. So yeah, but
Yeah. Oh,
so
I don't like it. I don't like it when I get proven right so conclusively, at least with typology. I want to be like conclusively mistyped, or at least type something else, which I don't think I am, so I
no,
can hear it out.
I've tested consistently on all the tests. I've been typed in multiple systems. Each time it conclusively comes back. Either people think that I'm an IEE or an EII. So that seems to be well, not. I actually got typed ILE once, and some people do think I'm NI base, which is interesting. But
Hmm.
yeah, it mostly all hovers around FINE.
Okay.
So so I can imagine that some people are just like that. Some people are
Yeah.
easy to find their type, and then their type's never going to change. And then it's like, they look in socionics, and then it's the direct translation of the elements from what their functions were in MBTI. Some people are just like that, and
Woohoo! I want some. I want something new.
yeah, some people are in between types and are getting different answers wherever they go. Sometimes it's due to like
Yeah.
group typings where it's like one person's like, I picked up on a vibe, and then their friend's like, oh yeah, that all makes sense. And then you have like five people that mistype a person. I've seen that one all the time.
Mm.
But usually I find that like actual typists tend to be pretty consistent.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I don't know, man. You're just one of those people that it's always going to be you're consistent. You're somehow TI. You're not TI, but you're you're acting like it right now.
Mm. See, I do. The only thing that I've been mistyped as has been a high TI type and a high
Yeah,
SE type. So
makes sense. Because we're gonna get
yeah.
into your DCNH, and I think your DCNH makes a lot of sense. I'm just looking through the
So
DCNH
it's
dichotomies, and like
not.
all of these
Ooh.
are like,
Okay.
oh, perfect. You are like such a good example of this DCNH. Um,
Mm.
so now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the blockings, and then we'll talk about DCNH afterwards. You heard about the way that I do it. I do it unconventionally. I don't go by mental and vital as I should. I go by dimensionality, and I start with the unconscious,
Mhm.
and then I move on to the conscious. Um, so now we're gonna talk about the super. No, not the super id. What am I doing? Just the id. You're strong but unvalued. Um, so starting first with demonstrative. I believe your demonstrative is whoops, sorry, is basically any. So what you're looking for with demonstrative any is a person who's going to go far and wide to get their ideas. Somebody who might travel over there to see what things are like over there and understand all that. But they're not doing that because it's interesting. They're doing that because it's practical. And so being open-minded equals being practical. And so that's what the primary difference is between the quasi-identicals right there. Is like, how is the NE being used? Because if the NE is being chained to some external object, instead of the NE just being treated as NE for itself, and then it's just some repeating pattern that they can just copy and paste and put everywhere else, it's more like that this idea yields outcomes, and I want to be able to manifest that. And so it's very obvious to me that even though you have strong NE, it's coming across, especially in the way that you're answering the questions, that you are indeed open-minded and will go far and wide. I think it's also kind of a six characteristic as well. I wouldn't be surprised. I think your tri-type probably is probably like 163 or something to that effect. Maybe it's 316. I don't know. Just I don't know the specific order. I probably would hedge my bets that
You know
you're
what's interesting?
yeah, you're I'd
I
probably
was like
hedge
the
my bets
tri-type,
that you're a 3.
and yeah, from what I'm supposed to talk about what I think I am right now for an ERM.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about that later. I mean, I'm just kind of throwing that in there. But
Yeah.
so yeah, random any tangent over. Basically, I believe that your any is unvalued, um, despite it being strong. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Now we're gonna move on to TI ignoring, and I'm just kind of going through it because you've already listened to Veronica's typing. So with ignoring TI, this is going to be a person that can understand system structures and laws, but they're not really interested. You know what I mean? Like for example, when you say that rules are a suggestion, very good example of TI ignoring. You know, you can learn from it, you can apply the information, but do you really care about following the rules? And it's like no. And so it's like you're you know that's one of those examples of you kind of being a rule bender. Um, I definitely see that you tend to be much more like externally focused, and so it's not you're basically modeling the system and then understanding the system, understanding how everything is kind of connected. Because we forgot to talk about dynamic, and I do think that you're dynamic. The dichotomy of dynamic because you see everything is so interconnected, and we'll get on to the TE part later, because I think I could just go on and on about the TE stuff. But yeah, there is this characteristic of you where you're not super focused on being perfectionist or on being super specific. You know, you're more so like, you know, like leave no bases uncovered. So you know, I'm out there externally trying to cover everything instead of trying to know everything. You know, when I'm asking you about the political question, you're going to the other people because the other people are a good source of knowledge, and you can leverage the knowledge. Not that you're understanding things for the sake of yourself. Um, that's definitely one characteristic that I'm seeing. That it's just like you're very external, and I just don't find a lot of TI and everything you said. I mean, I see you leveraging TI, but never like doing TI for the sake of TI. That's why I believe it's ignoring. I don't doubt that you would be good at being able to understand complex things or breaking down systems or structures. Just not your forte. You're a doer rather than a knower, I guess. Even though that's not impossible for you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, Now we're gonna move on to the next blocking, the super ego. My favorite blocking. You didn't you didn't complain about about any about any alpha SI. Well, actually, I think you did. I think you did. I think you complained about SI a little bit about people, you know, resting on their laurels and such. Um, but yeah, so the role, two-dimensional, unvalued. Um, I believe that your role is FE. So I believe it's also boosted by your subtype. And so the way that this is going to manifest with that role FE is that through business interactions, you're going to be able to leverage other people's emotions in a way. You know, it's like a businessman putting on a smile when he's selling something, right? You know, it's being able to access the FE when you need it for some purpose. And so it's like, you know, when you're dealing with somebody's like emotional issues or troubles, it's not that you can't deal with that and it makes you feel like super like you get away you like sort the person and you put them in the direction where it's appropriate for them to get what they need, right? And so that's where the thing is where it's like where that's where it's the roll FE instead of the polar FE, which just stop emoting at me and leave me alone. You're like, you know, I can help you to some extent, but probably helping you by networking you to the correct people who know how to deal with what you're dealing with. And that's like a great example of I think the role FE coming in. You know, you have just enough of it to know when to use it correctly, and that's really what it is. It's vocational and it's applying to the ego. So your two best elements are basically the guidebook for the FE because it is on the same reign of processing. Um, I really am kind of a mess. All right. Um, Now I think we're going to go ahead and move on to the polar. So the polar, I believe this one for you is SI. Basically, you're ignoring your environment. You know, you're sacrificing certain things about yourself, you know, like maintaining your health. You don't care about the way that your room is because your room is going to change. And you're out there getting things accomplished. And so there's where these very strong decisive characteristics are coming in. And then, I'm seeing decisive, 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 and almost everything you're saying. See why somebody might think that you're SE, of course. But it really is where it's like the SI is something, and you might find people polar SI might burn themselves out more, might be more prone to injury, these sort of things. They might lose their health while fixating or focusing on some project. I know it really sounds like SP last in Enneagram, but of course there probably are some SI polar people. But it's just kind of interesting, that it's like, yeah, don't really care about my room, don't really care about these things. I mean, but you're also still clean, which is one of the things that's interesting. You never said it was, I like things to be clean for the sake of it being clean. It's, I don't know, usually what I look for, you didn't really say this, but I look for people when they're decisive and they're conscientious. They'll usually say it's for pragmatism rather than the SI people who are like, it just needs to be clean. Like you talk to an ILE who's suggestive SI. And then eventually at some point, after they're having their intuition just going on in a parade forever, or they're getting lost in all their projects, when they come back home to themselves finally, they're like, holy shit, everything is upside down. And that's sensory suggestive. It's like, I don't... I think I'm getting off track here a little bit, but I don't see those characteristics within you, because I see you being clean, but you just don't care. It doesn't seem...
Well, if you're not clean, people aren't going to give a shit about you and not going to treat you seriously. So you got to be taken seriously.
Yeah, see, so it's like, it's about what other people think rather than what you think. Because I clean because I want to be clean. Because I'm SI mobilizing, But yeah, it definitely, I think that you're definitely SI polar. It's just like, hit, when I'm talking about the SI stuff. And then, it's like, what is like, relaxing or no, comfortable, what did I say?
Do you find it easy to relax?
Yes, do you find it easy to relax? See, here, decisive. My SI is too interpretive. But so, with that, do you find it easy to relax? Instead of talking about actually relaxing, you said that your job is this source of happiness and contentment for you. And so it's like literally, I'm probing the SI, and then you give me a decisive response. It's hilarious.
My life is a relaxation. I have no complaints.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, do what you love to do, and then everything will work out. And that is...
Yeah.
That's why I think that you're like SI polar. Is that like literally you responded with TE to the SI question. So now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the ego. The ego, you're strong and valued. We're gonna jump right into the base. I believe your base is TE, and so with base TE, you're going to see a person that's going to be able to modulate their time in order to get the best use out of it. Carpe diem is actually something my cousin, who is an LIE, was just talking about, on her Snapchat story. Which is funny, because it's like, that's the most NI thing, drag this word from the classics to describe TE. It was really fantastic. But definitely I saw you wanting to regiment yourself around what's pragmatic, about what gets things done, what's most effective, and that effectiveness was the thing that I'm consistently seeing. And then you're coming up with a lot of ideas and a lot of structures and frameworks to adhere to your effectiveness. My mood factors into my effectiveness. The job that I have, determines how successful I'm going to be, and like the people I surround myself with. And you're considering all of these things because why? Because these are going to stack and then help you become more significant later on, which is going to lead us into the creative NI, because you're looking into where these things are gonna end up, and especially what I see when people are really going into the future, that it's like things are going to be like this in the future, or you have to see how things are going to be like then. You're letting the time do the work instead of yourself doing the work, like you would expect with an NI polar person who runs around like a chicken with their head cut off, making sure they put out all the fires. The NI person is going to have a sense of ease about those things because they're trying to project it out into the future, and they want to make sure that their understanding of that is going to be doing some of the work and some of the load. Work smarter, not harder. Those things. You can find NI polar people using that exact same phrase. So I definitely think that you're NI creative, simply because of because it's not only about your effectiveness, it's your effectiveness well out into the future, and who are you going to be late game. Even though, of course, that you're not someone who's super fixated on everything that's way far out in the future, like in an I base. There's more nuance to it because nearsighted. People who are TE based are nearsighted people. So I definitely see some, even though I haven't really talked about that dichotomy ever. I definitely see that one kind of coming in for play as well. Yeah.
Is that it?
I'm kind of reading some of my notes here. We've got
Okay.
one more blocking to talk about.
Two, no?
I'm sorry?
SENFI. I think we'll have two.
Yes. Um,
Yeah.
so we're just going to go ahead and jump in. So this is the super id, your weak but valued. Um, so with your mobilizing elements, your two-dimensional valued, I believe this one to be SE. So, you would expect somebody to overdo the SE. So this could be somebody getting into too much conflict. This could be somebody spinning too many plates at once. This could
Oops.
be um, getting overstretched by all of your commitments and everything that you're doing. Um, it also it also could be. Well, I think I mentioned that. So basically, where I see that coming into play for you is that um, you're for example, some things are about you need to see the evidence in order to know things about it. You did kind of mention that. You didn't talk about it a lot. It wasn't one of the main themes, but I just remember there was one conversation where we were talking about that. Um, one of the things with the mobilizing SE is that you jump into the conflicts head first to get the advantage in the situation, to get the drop, to be able to leverage it before the other person has time to TI and NI and strategize and come back with some structure or system in order to beat you. It's like you got to cut the thing off by the root. There's a great example of the SE mobilizing, mostly because the mobilizing can sometimes look like the base. So that's really fantastic, honestly. That you said that it was just like I don't really hesitate at all. I just jump into the fray, and that's extroverted, extroverted decisive, plus plus. You know what I mean? That was definitely one of the things that I saw. Um, I mean, the fact that you take an interest in sports, in things such as fighting, and keeping yourself sharp. That's one of the things that SE users focus on a lot, is themselves being sharp as a tool. And so, it's not the skills like the delta. The deltas are focused on the skills. You might see the gamma being like, I myself am a weapon. Or even with beta ST as well. You could see that mentality. Um, and so, the SE wants to fixate on the health, wants to fixate on the sharpness, and on people being healthy and happy and these things. Like are people grounded? Are people in themselves? I think you did say some things in the pursuit of that as well. And so there's some
I
other
definitely
SE
care about like
characteristics.
being happy. I definitely care about that. I'd say, straightforward, happy, get what I want to get, focus on what I want to get, and keep getting more and more and more.
Yeah. See, there's the TE, man. It's all about that feedback loop of just getting more and more resources. I mean, when I was talking to you about learning lessons here at the beginning, you were talking about that it's the things outside in the environment that condition you to learn the lessons. So you'll experience them, and so you'll want to probe further and such. And so
Yeah.
it's very interesting. I mean, it's just a lot of
It's
TE.
all a challenge if you think about it.
Yeah.
And I love challenges. If I see something in front of me, that's why I kind of like fighting because it's not something people are good at, but just in that off chance that it happens and I'm challenged with that situation, I should know how to deal with it. I
Yeah.
should know how to deal with everything. Challenge makes you better. So in a sense, that's why I enjoy that process of
Yeah. Absolutely.
getting shit
Such
done.
such like decisive extrovert characteristics. The enjoying of challenge, the enjoying of struggle, being sharpened by your experiences and such. Yeah. Um, Now we're gonna go to your final element here, which is the FI suggestive. Where I see this coming in for you, I think, is your open-mindedness to other people's ability to assist you in processing your own emotions. Because you can't really do it yourself, but you recognize that it's a process that's complex and that other people can help you kind of tap into that. And so there's because the SE is kind of just thrown around everywhere all willy nilly because it's the mobilizing, and then it's suggested is this painstaking thing that you really have to experience and then you really focus on. And so I think that this like emotional intelligence, where it's coming from, is you working on that FI. Not just necessarily you having FI, but you actually working on the FI and going towards it, and to have some emotional intelligence with yourself and learning a lot of the criticisms about men, where they lack that emotionality and where they lack that understanding of what truly drives or powers or passions them. The fire that emotions bring to the table. You're kind of focusing on the other part of yourself, that it's not just the acquisition of wealth, which is very, very gamma, and the acquiring of resources and such, but it's about what the ESI would say, you having a good psychological condition that's conducive of you being able to be active and productive. And I absolutely see those characteristics, where you have moved towards your FI significant enough, and this is the part where it's like, oh, well, there seems to be some balance here with your suggestive. I think it's obviously because you've been putting in some effort into it. I don't know if that's by force or what. I mean, you're admitting that maybe that life circumstances haven't been that hard on you. Maybe it's that fixation on productivity that has brought you closer to your emotions. But I
It's
do.
the opposite.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
product of life having been a bitch. So how do I deal with it? Because I have to deal with it. There's no other
Yes.
solution. And I have to be the person who's like, if I have something to do, I have to do it. It has to be done. And if I'm stuck in the mindset, which I was at my worst, which I've been put because of things out of my control so many times, then I have to have the tools necessary. I have to be the Swiss knife, so to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. This was something
That
that.
just
Yeah.
that can just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And see, that's what I think is so fantastic. It's so very EJ. I cannot stop. I cannot rest. There's work to be done. Um, so I absolutely think that I've gotten all of this correct. Your socionic typing is LIE. I don't think you really expected a different result, and I certainly didn't see any justifications for why you would be SLE. Mostly because
Now that you've said it, I don't either.
yeah, mostly because there wasn't like a humorousness to the way that you go about or get things done. Sometimes the SLEs like to make a drama or an uproar or these sort of things. You didn't naturally bring out any of these when I was probing, manipulating or working on other people's emotions. SLEs will typically say, yeah, if I want to use emotions to get a result, I want to irritate that guy over there because I think it's funny to watch him cry. That's your SLE in a nutshell. I just didn't really see any of that behavior if you're going out of your way to cause problems. Not that
It's
that's
interesting. That's something I do, but it's not something I like ever do when I'm in control of myself. It's just
yeah,
something I do because it just comes out of me.
yeah, and this is the biggest thing. The biggest thing, you are restrained by responsibilities, right? And so this is where the SE is demobilizing instead of it being the base. So it's not the modus operandi. It's like you can do whatever you want and have your fun, your EP, and then going far and wide to experience things that are going to be fun and entertaining and that are going to give you stories to tell and give you character. It's like, no, I am restrained by the responsibility I have to my tribe and everyone I have around me. And I know I just used OPS terms. I really wasn't
Ooh,
trying to. But,
this is really funny. You should read my about me. You should read it out.
okay. What you do what you have to do so you can ultimately do what you want to. Yeah. Yeah.
Nail right on the head.
Yeah, that explains it so well, honestly. To where it's like, the SE is kind of subservient to the TE. Maybe subservient's not the correct term, but it's the TE is obviously coming first. And that's what I'm seeing in all the situations and circumstances. I'm seeing seriousness rather than merriness because you have that it has to be done, it must be done, that sort of drive and focus that I think SLEs do. They have a lot of drive and they have a lot of ability to make things happen. They're very good at gauging the utility of others which all might sound LIE in some ways, but that Mary versus serious, you just slide so seriously into serious. Like it's so obvious to me. And I think now we can go ahead and talk about the DCNH. Is there any questions you have? Is everything straight so far?
Yes, I want you to tell me about what DCNH is to
Okay.
begin with.
So basically, DCNH is like a subtype system that's correlated with neurotransmitters. And so you basically have like some people lean EP, some people lean IJ, EJ, IP, all those things. And so your dominant is your EJ, your creative is your EP, normalizing is your IJ, and harmonizing is your IP. And so basically, you'll kind of lean in those directions depending on the neurotransmitters, and then that's kind of like translated as saying these elements are boosted. And sometimes you see somebody leaning into one element over the other. So it's like, you can have an LSE that's a TI subtype. I know somebody who's like an LIE, who's a harmonizing, who's like, yeah, I'm more of like an SI subtype. And so you'll kind of see people maybe perhaps mention one element over the other. I tend to say that you're both those elements. And so the one that I believe that you are is dominant. So, you leaning into the EJ means that you're more naturally who of yourself. But mostly I think that you're dominant because you're going above and beyond. And it's not just specific LIE characteristics, because LIEs can be pretty introspective and pretty reserved, because they lack that SF. They build that up as they get on later in life. And so that kind of warmth that they feel and the connection to the environment is not something that they notice. And so there's kind of an ambiversion to them. I really think that in your situation and circumstance, you are very attenuated to how you are interconnected to everyone else. And that is one thing that I'm seeing over and over again. And so there's connecting, ignoring as a dichotomy in DCNH, and that's connecting. And I saw all sorts of connecting statements just over and over and over again throughout the typing session. I think that there's initiating and terminating. So initiators like myself are more vague and will bring things up, and then the terminators are the people who put the bow on the thing, who get the last word in, the people who are making the decision about the thing. And so it's like, you're connecting things and making decisions about things and these things, and that's where the dominant's especially coming in. You saying that sometimes you can be a bit crass in some situations because the dominant is the ego. It is the young man venturing out to conquer the world. It is really what you see with the dominant subtype. And I definitely think that from everything that we've gone over with, I know I haven't talked about one of the dichotomies. Yeah, which is, I think, it's the one that correlates to static dynamic. But yeah, I'd see a lot of examples of why you would be LIE dominant. I know I have some of the description of LIE dominant memorized, and it's like, a captain of industry and these sort of things. And it's like, I see a lot of those characteristics within you. And I can certainly, after the typing session's over, send you the literature that is kind of confirming why I think you're a dominant. Some information about
I'd
DCNH
appreciate that.
and such. But I'm pretty much convinced that not only are you LIE, but dominant. Sometimes it can be a little bit shaky on the DCNH, but to me, it's like as clear as day for you, honestly.
Yeah. So we kind of ended up with what I used to think I was before.
Yeah, LIE dominant. We obviously didn't go far from the direction that we thought it was going to be in the beginning. But of course, you're probably one of those people who are just very consistent throughout the tests and the interviews and such. And maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe that you guys are the baseline that help us weave all this bullshit together.
Yeah, but it always makes me question, what do I not know about myself? Because I'm giving you what I know about myself, what I think I know about myself.
Yeah.
Today, I kind of came with the aim and purpose of trying to find out and figure out something I don't know about myself. And I think I have in some sense,
Okay.
in the way you described the usage of FI, especially in relation to offloading uh, emotionality, so to say,
Yeah.
and how
Well,
you described FE role. That was something valuable that I gained out of this.
fantastic. Well, I'm glad that
Yeah.
I could be helpful of you. Is there anything you'd like to say? I think I'm going to go ahead and turn the recording off.
Yeah, once you turn the recording off, I should talk about some of the DCNH stuff and Enneagram a little bit.
Gotcha. All right. I'm going to go ahead and turn it
Cool.
off.
Good session. Thank you.
You're welcome.